We have the privilege of talking with Rabbi Leib Tropper. Today we're going to combine our session of talking about perspective and thoughts with the halachas themselves. We've entitled this session, Making Yourself Useful, Infusing Your Life with Meaning. Infuse your life with meaning. Rabbi Tropper, is there a way that spirituality and Torah observance infuses a person's life with meaning? And if so, what are some of the aspects of that we might be able to learn from and infuse our life with meaning?
This, the wording, infuse your life with meaning, echoes sentiment of the psychologist who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning.
Viktor Frankl.
Right, Viktor Frankl wrote that book, and he wrote 9 books about meaning in life, talking about anywhere from mortality to values. And I think perhaps I want to share with you first, at the beginning, just an article from a very successful person. This was in a magazine, a psychology magazine, and it was this person is talking about how they were blessed. He and his wife were blessed to live what they call their dream, the dream life. The article reads as follows. The heading is, "I felt trapped by my perfect life." That speaks powerfully about the vacuous existence that many of us could live despite having so much, and that it's not filled by material, pleasureful experiences in life. So here's what the person writes. From the outside, it looks like I live a charmed life. I work as a professional musician alongside my husband. Touring the world, I get to see so many beautiful places, and I experience wonderful things, from snorkeling with turtles in Barbados to seeking the northern lights on Norway. Ask anyone who will tell you I am living the dream. Yet, I feel empty. So empty. I feel trapped and rootless. I have no home anywhere in the world in my life, which is spent in suitcases. The nature of my job means that I have to project a persona at all times, changing, personally, professionally, and online. I have to be seen to be positive and loving the life, but underneath the surface, I feel like I am cracking and there's no way out. Occasionally I have to deal with hurtful and deeply pressed criticism of my performance. But this isn't necessarily the problem. I know that part of the problem may be overwork. I haven't had a birthday, anniversary, or celebrations in a long time. But I do feel so empty, even with the celebrations, when I have them. So why do I feel despair most of the time? Please help. Somebody wrote a letter to a psychologist or a counselor, I'm not sure. But this person is definitely successful, as you could see.
By that yardstick of success.
But successful in the material world, very successful. Yet, and that in many places would make people happy, great, doing wonderful, making hand over fist. I'm just making deposits one way, it's going in, it's not going out, it just stays there. Not going out part is the problem. But they feel trapped in a perfect life. The Mashgiach, who this is quoted from many different philosophers, and he quotes one. There are other books that quote other philosophers that say the same thing. There's a man was walking in Athens with a torch in the daytime, and Socrates asked him, "What are you looking for?" And the person answered, "I'm looking for a human being. For that you must look with a torch in the daytime." What does that human being mean? what kind of shleimus? What kind of shleimus is that? How would you draw a picture of that shleimus of a human being, of human existence? One is, it's not perfection. The one key word is striving, aspiring, struggling to reach something. It's not about achieving only. It's about dedicating your life to reaching a goal that will fill your neshama, your soul, that whispers to you every morning, I need to eat, I need to be nourished, I need to be fulfilled. That neshama that whispers to you every day in all different ways, in your conscience, in your work, in your frustrations, is telling you, don't ignore your neshama, which we so often do. We challenge the neshama. We are not interested. We ignore the needs of the neshama. The needs of the neshama start off as they say with the Goin. The Vilna Goin was he had a dream, or he came to somebody in a dream, and they asked him, "Ma nase bedincha? What's going to be with your judgment in Shamayim? How are they going to judge you?" He said, "Everything I can manage." And then he gave a burst of a yell, and he said, "But ben adam lachaveroi, it's such the dini Shamayim on ben adam lachaveroi are so beyond one could imagine, and one logically could assume that we must do things that are illogical sometimes to perform the appropriate ben adam lachaveroi." Take a Gemara example in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos talks about how one must be mohammed schus. He's still going to a house of ill repute and going, and women were there and all kind of things, and it wasn't a home of something where they're doing something valdik terrific. It was a home of znus. And one of these great rabbanim went in there, and Talmidim stayed behind, and they asked him, when you went in there, they didn't even say a word to him, and he asked them, "What did you think when I went into this disgusting place?" So we said maybe you had to go do something else in there, you had to drop something in there, but all kinds of things. And they twisted their minds to be mohammed schus on this person. To be like the Eibishter, to be doimer like the Eibishter, to be misdamed to the Eibishter, to say you love God, means to emulate God. And if that is one of the ways of emulating God, be malamed kafschus, that means, by definition, it's not necessarily a rational derech of thinking. It can be irrational. It can be, why would you, I took it by film, what did you think? Going into this place. It'd be clear to them that it was one. Of course, it wasn't, but it was. The Malamed Schus was so unbelievable, so almost irrational. Rabbi Chaim Oizer comments on that Gemara in Shabbos. Rabbi Chaim Oizer says, he asks, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create a head that could think straight and could also think krum? It could think twisted logic. Why would we need that twisted logic? What purpose does it have? And Rabbi Chaim Oizer answered, to be mohammed schus in a twisted way. That's why he uses the word Hashem created a krum seichel. To be able to be mohammed schus, even if it's, so remote and so not likely. So that's the way to be diamond to the Eibishter. But again, going back to the point that the Vilna Gaon was making, is that the Adam Chavera has a different rules. Not that you did or you didn't. The quality of you doing it. Sensitivity for how you do it, the thought process. Do you think when somebody says to themselves in the morning, "Ani mama be'emunah shlema shekadosh baruch hu yodea kol maseh adam u'machshavosam," God knows all deeds of people and their thoughts. That's some kind of innocuous statement about an emunah that it's important, but doesn't really do anything for ourselves. But there's something special about that. Say it to yourself. each of us, myself, say to ourselves, there's good news and bad news in that Ani Mamin. One good news is, Ani Mamin, Ramon Shlema, I mean, those the thoughts. When you think bad about a person to hurt somebody, or you think bad about a person that he is not worthy of anything, Chas v'shalom, there's din v'cheshbon. That's the good news. I mean, that's the bad news. Sorry, that's the bad news. The good news is that if you think about doing a favor to somebody that day, you get rewarded for the favor. We get rewarded for the favor. We get schar. We get rewarded. Because Baruch Hu loves us because we're emulating the Eibishter in that way. That we're thinking about another Yid. We're thinking about the kesher we're developing an Ahavas Yisrael that's beyond just deed. It's in your thought. It's in your mind. Going home at night and putting your head on the pillow, thinking, look what I did today, Baruch Hashem. I was able to think about this person's needs. Perhaps I was able to help him. I was able to go and find out if a person really is impecunious. He's totally just dried out financially, and I was able to make a phone call and help him a little bit. The Neshama feels so filled, refreshed, prepared for the next day's challenge. That's what true existence and the challenge of dealing with the Neshama brings to us every day. Sometimes we could walk around. Rabbi used to say about people who walk around depressed. Now, he wasn't telling them that there's an easy remedy for being depressed, but he would say, keep your depression to yourself. When a person walks around depressed, miserable, purposeless, meaningless, and it's just written all over his face. He calls that it affects other people's mood as well. It affects other people's mood as well. And he says the answer is, well, he would call it a bar b'shus harabim. You're walking around carrying this bar, a pitfall where people which fall into it with you together. It's like he would say to him, don't be a bar b'shus harabim, when he saw somebody walking around with his face down.
Misery loves company, and it's inviting them over also. Fall in.
Exactly. And they all fall in together with his misery, walking around, oh, this is no good, and this is no good, and this is no good, and that's no good. And I think that Alan Dershowitz tells a story about somebody, a Jew in France. Right, he was two Jews sitting on a bench, park bench. One Jew was reading the Jewish paper. The other Yid was reading the Goyish paper. So the Yid who's reading the Jewish paper is wondering why the other Yid, who's observant of him and caring of him about Yiddishkeit, Yid, why is he reading the Goyish paper? So he asks him, why are you reading the non-Jewish paper? I'll tell you why. I tried to read the Yiddish paper, but everything there says tzaras. Jews are getting persecuted here, Jews are getting persecuted here. The banks are closing, the business is no good. Jews are getting poor, but they're getting putting in a ghetto. It's all terrible. But I look at the Goyish paper. It talks about how Jews own the banks, they own everything, and such political influence they have. Okay, so I have to have always oi, can't I have a little joy? So I guess that's how it impacts us. We read a paper that talks depressingly about the Jewish state of affairs, and we also feel the depression. When it's a live human being on two legs, it's the same exact thing. The influence is no less. It's challenging, and it's really almost tormenting to see that the Jews are so tormented and feel inside like they can't think anything positive about their life. So how could you have a life? How could one live a life of the dream? It's living a nightmare. Not a dream, it's living a nightmare. In order to live that dream, one must be involved in other people, in other things, in tzedakah, chesed, mitzvahs, ma'asim tovim, thinking about other people, living a life of be'adol chaverei, living a life of making your life purpose. That's the guarantee. Reb Chaim Volozhin, Zeichet Tzadik L'Bracha in Hagdama to Nefesh HaChaim writes that his son, hearing from his father, that a person was not created for himself. His whole purpose is to help another Yid. Helping another Yid comes out in millions of branches and ways and styles and so on. Not embarrassing another Yid, talking positive to another person, not talking Lashon Hara, Lashon Tov, what is allowed to say, good things, saying good things about you, another Yid. Imagine a world that people spoke just good about another Jews in any measure that is permitted to do.
Does it extend beyond the Jewish community? He says, "B'kol ha'koychos, b'kol adam." Is it for every? Does it mean for every human being?
Tell us. He means right. He means for Klal Yisrael. I mean, it could be that it's also for Goyim, but his writing is for Yid. A person's purpose of life is to help other Jews. Hoyel la'achrini, help others like him, not others that are not like him. So how do we do that? How do we find our life to turn into a life of that's meaningful? That's living that life that Rabbi Chaim Volozhin is talking about. First thing is we need awareness of certain mitzvahs all the time. There are mitzvahs that are laying dormant. We know about them. We're aware of them. And if I'll ask you, I'll say, don't you know there's a mitzvah big chaylim? How come you're playing dominoes or chess? You can't do a mitzvah chaperon, a mitzvah somebody around the corner. You'll say, I don't know about the mitzvah, but so creating awareness about this powerful mitzvah. As one said, awareness is like resurrection. A focused awareness, attentive awareness is like resurrection of that mitzvah to you. To resurrect the mitzvahs in a way that you have a total awareness of that mitzvah. We have to appreciate a special way the mitzvah of tzedakah. There are many people who make their own rules for tzedakah. Many people who give tzedakah in a beautiful way. The first thing that we should do is regarding that tzedakah is, it's like koch nefesh. I'm sorry, it's like tchias hamesim for some people who don't have money, and thinking about what would be if they had money. And dreaming the child's dream, what would be if, and they constantly live that because they don't have any money. They can't pay tuition, they're embarrassed. They can't do this, they're embarrassed. They can't go here, they're embarrassed. They have no car, they're embarrassed. Nothing. So there's a Shulchan Aruch that deals with this problem. Siman Reish Mem Tes, Yerdeya, Sivav. First of all, it talks about when you give your tzedakah, let's say to a gabbai tzedakah. Let's assume you're giving a tzedakah to a gabbai tzedakah who's going to give it out. You have to give it to somebody who's a ne'eman, and to a person who's Yirei Shemayim.
He has credibility.
Yeah, right. That's what Ne'eman means. Ne'eman means he's a trustworthy person. Ramah adds that it should be somebody, it should be also chacham, with credibility. He says on that word, chachamim. They should be smart. They should understand. And some people add on, you should be, whether it's to be chacham, it's like Gemara says, the gabbai we want is somebody like Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan. Whoa, what a gabbai. So there are machlekes haposkim about whether one needs to. We should also look for a talmid chacham in being a gabbai, not just a gabbai who makes decisions and thinks that he knows the situation, but talmid chacham he knows the halachas of tzedakah. Maybe I'll make you aware of a psak from Shlomo Zalman. I'm not sure everybody agrees with it, but Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that if you give tzedakah to a person who really doesn't need it, because he fooled you, you may be able to lifnei iva b'shoigig, but you're able to lifnei iva because he stole money from you and stole money from other people that deserved it tzedakah. So you have to be awareness resurrects the mitzvah properly. If you resurrect hilchas tzedakah in your mind, then you'll learn it. You'll become totally not learn it in that mitzvah. You be kind of well educated. Now here's a tremendous chiddush. The Gemara says, Bava Basra, we learned this. Bava Basra Yeshiva, we learned this Gemara. When we used to learn, now we kind of changed because we learn sugyas. We don't learn the Gemara like one after the other. But in my day, in Yeshiva, and I still do, we learn page by page the Gemara in Bava Basra. Interrupted sometimes, but I got it. But the Gemara Bava Basra Daf Tes says, somebody who has no schus, totally considered Russia. In Medrash Shechatayv, not in the Gemara, in Medrash Shechatayv, it says that he's zoichet to see the Shechina also. As it says, Ani b'tzedek erazeh panecha. With tzedek, meaning tzedakah, I will see your face. With that alone, just with the mitzvah of tzedakah, I'll be zoichet to benefit from the shine, the radiance of the Eibishter. This is mind-boggling what a schus tzedakah is. The Abbas Chesed, the Chafetz Chaim, and Chelik Beis, I don't remember exactly where it is, in which parak, but I remember the Abbas scenes. I was learning with my father, Zechet Alik Laracha, and we were talking about Chafetz Chaim, talking about complaining, protesting, about people who run to Gedol Yisrael for brachas, and more brachas, and segulas and brachas, while Tzedakah Tatzal Mimavis, says in Mishlei, is right in front of us. It's right in front of us. So if we wouldn't ignore and we give tzedakah and then we go for the segulas and the brachas, fine. But to ignore something that Shlomo Melech said, that Torah is made, that he is the smartest person that ever was and ever will be. He tells us tzedakah tatzal mimav is guaranteed. The Gra in Mishlei, Perik Yud, and the pasuk tzedakah tatzal mimav, he writes. He talks about generally the three things, the three stages, the three kinds of stages in a person's life. There's toiv, moil, and orev. Toiv is when you come across good things. Orev is sweet things, come along, sweet experiences, sweet food, sweet thing. And then there's moil, the things that help you, good food that helps you, good deeds that help you. And on tzedakah he writes, not only is it good, it's the pure good. It's the only good that will help you from Misa Chas v'Shalom. It's the only thing that can help you from Misa. Take a look, please. Don't trust me. Take a look at the Gra in Mishlei, Perek Yud, on the pasuk, second pasuk, I think, in the Perek. Tzedakah tatzal mimavis. We should not give tzedakah, like I mentioned before, to people who are not worthy of the tzedakah. In other words, if somebody comes to you that he wants to make a chasana, and he has to have a 6-piece band instead of a 4-piece band, I don't know if that's considered tzedakah. The person is roy for tzedakah for that. And so on and so forth. Those kinds of situations. So much so that the Gemara says, Bava Basra, that if a person is not zeiche for whatever reason, he has never schus, he'll be nichshel in aniyim she'enom mehuganim. He'll be nichshel in giving the wrong type of money, and that you won't have money for the right type of money. I just want to end this conversation, this learning that we're doing together, that we need to strengthen ourselves in the mitzvah of, nichnas v'yotze. Money has to come in, but also has to go out. So we only concerned about the nichnas, what enters, the income, what goes in, how much I have, but how much I give. We should be proud of what we give, which is ultimately what we really have. Because Baruch will bless you all, that you should appreciate Torah giving us this mitzvah of tzedakah to help Achinu b'nei Yisrael, a neighbor, a brother, a chassan, a kala, putting on a smile on someone who just didn't have one. Thank you very much.